Oh, and Alvin.
Alvin's here somewhere.
Alvin's muted.
There he is.
Yeah, I'm out there.
So we're waiting on Clyde. And now we've got 6 attendees, which include the public, Karen, Marlena. So we're still waiting on either Clyde or George as an alternate, but I did not request him to attend as an alternate. So let's just give it another minute. And thank you, public, for waiting. It looks like we have one call in.
There. Oh, he's on the list of attendees.
Yeah. So can you move Clyde into?
All right. He should be joining us as a panelist now.
There we go. And then our one caller is from an Orange County area code. So could either be, I don't know who. I don't know if that caller wants to identify his or herself, but otherwise we've got 1, 2, 3.
Would you like me to ask him to identify himself?
No, they don't need to.
No, they don't have to.
They don't have to? Okay. They have their hands right now, so.
Yep.
Oh, there you go. Call on this person.
Yeah, that's actually a little known fact that when people are speaking in front of any body in California, they do not have to identify who they are.
Yeah.
True.
Didn't know that. Okay.
And we've got a second call in from probably San Diego area code. So, well, okay. I think we're ready. Stephanie, if you want to run your meeting.
Our chair runs our meeting.
I can do it.
Oh, right.
But Stephanie, you want to do it?
Yeah, no kidding, huh?
Okay, so we're all ready to go. And let's see if there are any comments from the public on any item within the district's jurisdiction. Does there anybody have their hand up, Joel?
Director Anderson, I do not see anybody with their hands up, but let me just remind the public how they may raise their hand. So if you're participating by Zoom, go ahead and use the raise hand function. If you're dialing in, just make sure that you push *9 from your phone. For those calling in, I'll identify you by the last 3 digits of your phone number. Callers are encouraged, but are not required to identify themselves by name. And Director Anderson, I do not see anybody with their hands raised.
Okay.
I think we need to do a roll call also for attendance.
Okay. So let me go ahead and begin with roll call. Director Anderson.
I'm here.
Director Edwards.
Here.
Director Roberson.
I am here.
Okay. So we can move on to the action items, and we will receive public comment. Do we receive that about the schedule before we talk about it?
Right, there were no raised hands on public comment. So okay. Yeah, so we're at the committee meeting schedule.
Okay. Anybody have any comments or problems with the schedule? Check the dates, no. Check your calendar. Okay. Do we have a motion? Go ahead.
I was just saying, keep in mind, some of these may be canceled if there's no activity, but
of course,
I've said that on other meetings. So, yeah.
Okay.
Hey, move to adopt.
Second. I'll give a second, and all those in favor. We don't have.
Let's try a roll call vote.
Yeah. Oh, that's right. That's my other board. Sorry.
All right.
Director Anderson.
Yes.
Director Edwards.
Yes.
Director Roberson.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, so discussion items. Now, we want to ask for comments from the public on each of these, correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay.
So yeah, once we get through them.
Yeah. Oh, after we discuss them.
Mm-hmm.
So the first one is on Ordinance 187. Thank you for that, Stephanie. Department of Defense sites.
Right, and ordinance, so the agenda was published wrong. It is Ordinance 187. And this ordinance went to first reading.
And thank you, Marlena, for pointing that out.
This went for first reading to the board in January. Second reading was postponed for up to 4 months to allow staff and the Navy to work together to identify what potential water credits they may have that would be affected by this ordinance. We had a meeting with the Navy on February 11th. It was attended by Public Works for the Navy, as well as their council. The outcome of that meeting was that we discussed giving the district will give them a timeline of when our various conservation requirements went into play, because at such time as a requirement kicks in, that no longer is available as a water credit. For example, all non-residential uses had to have high efficiency toilets or ultra low flow toilets by 2014. So as of that date, that credit no longer is available. We also will be providing them with background documentation as to what's in our file about former credits. And I've been trying to get that together and get it out to them before the end of this week. And then they will be looking at the construction projects that have been done in the last 20 years that might have required a water permit from the district. And they are also looking at various retrofits that have been undertaken and identifying when those were done so we can determine if there is a credit associated with those. We do not have a future date at this point because I think they're working on their end and we're providing information. So I assume we will probably get together with them again in probably another month. And then at that point, we'll be looking at confirming eligibility for credit with the information that they're able to compile, quantifying what credit might be available still at this point and what permits needed to have been issued. So balancing basically a credit debit situation, with the ultimate goal being that they'd like to know what their status is when this ordinance goes into place. As far as extending their credits and how much credit they have at this point. And the Army, who's the other end of the DoD picture locally, supports the ordinance. And so they're just on standby waiting for us to complete this process. And I think that's my presentation.
Okay.
So Stephanie, do you think we can bring this back in April or?
I think it's going to be May.
Okay.
I think that given what I've seen in the file for, the late 80s through 2000, there's a lot of construction that took place that got offset by different credits. If they have continued doing the same type of reconstruction, demolitions, and whatnot, I think it's going to take them some time. I think that they've got some challenges looking at their own records and trying to identify what occurred when. So I think it's going to be a bigger process on their end than probably we expected as a board. And so I'm hopeful that they'll be able to have that compiled. And Marlena is on our participant list today. Maybe she can shed some light on what timeline they're going to be looking at. But yeah, I think we're going to need the full time.
Yeah, and I also think it's very instructive. Marlena raised her hand, so Joel, you can call on her in a second during public comment. I do think it's instructive to note that, commands change, roughly every 3 years. And we often hear back from federal institutions, not just on the Navy, that your rules don't apply to us. But I think that the record shows that NPS and the Navy in general has worked really well with the district in the past in permitting and water counting and being part of the community in terms of water awareness. So, you know, we're very hopeful that this is going to keep going.
Through the chair, Dave, is it a problem to do two separate ordinance, one for the Army and one for the Navy? So we can move the Army along and the Navy can, if they need to, take their sweet time, but we get one of them out of the way. Can we do two separate ordinances?
Yeah, we shouldn't, because the way we've defined DoD sites and everything else, it works really well, I think. You know, the way this has been crafted is we've kind of elevated them to the same status as the airport. You know, the airport's in unincorporated territory, whereas the DoD sites are incorporated, but they really have different needs than the jurisdictions in which they live. So I think we keep them together, and you know, I don't think we're under huge time pressure to do so. So yeah, I think we should, you know, meter this out as long as it takes to get it done, but it should be done. I don't think, well, let's just say if one of the institutions felt that they weren't subject to our rules and regulations, then they always have that option, whether we pass an ordinance or we don't pass an ordinance. So yeah, I think we just keep going.
Well, and I was going to add to that and just say that at this point, what's at issue is the credit that the Army currently has that will expire in June.
Right.
And the way the ordinance is written, even if it's adopted after that expiration, it would reinstate that credit. And right now they don't have any projects shovel ready that are going to need to use that credit. So I don't think that, I mean, I'm sure they're concerned about it, but obviously what the ordinance will do is put it all back into place.
Madam Chair, may I suggest that we listen to Marlena Brown from the Naval Support Activity?
Certainly. Joel, can you activate Marlena's? There she is.
Hi, committee. You can hear me. Okay, great.
Yes.
So first of all, I just wanted to say thank you to Stephanie and the other Stephanie for really trying hard to work with us on this. It's going to take a village, and it's been a lot of staff time to look at some of our history and our records, and we are making progress. So just thank you very much for working with us. I would say we will take as much time as you will allow for us to do this, and if that May deadline is still hard and fast, then we will work toward that goal. But all extra time would be appreciated. Excuse me, too many technical devices going off at the same time. While we would support two different ordinances, I understand why you want to pursue one. But again,
here we go.
Allowing us time is appreciated, and we look forward to the data requests that we requested in order to identify any available credit that we have.
All right.
I'd like to ask Marlena a question, if I may. Hey, Marlena, this is Mayor Clyde. How's your bicycle?
My bicycle is fantastic, though I think I needed to get a new battery pretty soon.
Okay, that means you're riding a lot. I miss seeing you at our council meetings and out and about.
Well, I can see you at the council meeting, sir, so.
Oh, pressure's on.
That's funny.
Okay, is there any more comments by the directors or staff?
I'd like to ask, this discussion relates to an action that the board took last meeting or the meeting before, where we established the DOD as a separate entity with its own water credits. Is this a follow-up to that? Is that the correct link?
Yeah, and that ordinance was only first reading. So it has not been adopted and is not part of our rules at this point, but it's on delay for second reading.
Understood. Then as you start trying to compile all the changes, I was the mayor in the mid-'80s when the major expansion at the DLI took place. This is when many of the barracks that are there now were built, as well as the classrooms. So that little known fact, there's a 100-year storm storage system up there, by the way. And a real good resource is Fred Muir, as you know, a retired city manager and colonel. And he probably would have a lot of knowledge, not only about the DLI, but the Naval Postgraduate School as well. Then of course, our city manager, Hans Uslar, who was there for most of that. So I would offer that to Marlena, the DOD, DLI, and Naval Postgraduate School as two resources. Colonel Fred Muir and our city manager, Hans Uslar. They have all of that history.
Excellent.
Thank you. So is it time to go out to the public?
Yeah, we sort of did with Marlena, so yes. There are no other hands raised. So.
Okay. Thank you. So
we do have one hand raised.
Yeah, there's one hand.
From a phone. Yeah, somebody on the phone. Joelle, you want to call on the phone person?
So let me put up my timer first.
Okay.
The caller with the last 3 digits of 056. I'll go ahead and allow you to talk, and then when you're ready, you may present your comment.
Hi, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, this is Erica Marks with the City of Monterey Public Works. Again, I just wanted to echo Marlena's sentiments and thank you to the district and the board for bringing forth this ordinance that is going to help both of us, I believe. So the Army is still pushing for the 4-month period. We would prefer that it doesn't go past that time period because, as Stephanie said, we do have water credits that are due to expire in June. And we do understand that those credits would be reinstated to us after the ordinance, if the ordinance were passed. But we are still trying to push this forward as soon as possible. So that's our position. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Director Anderson, do not see any more raised hands. So I'll go ahead and return this back to the board.
Okay. So this is
yeah, there's no action required on this.
There's no action on this one. So if we have no more questions on this, we can move on to the Water for Housing Initiative, which is item 3.
Excellent, item 3, yeah. So thank you. We're finally there. You know, we had intended by October to make a formal application to the State Water Board for relief from condition 2 of the cease and desist order. We kind of got bogged down, and then the holidays and the change in administration, et cetera. We waited for our new senator to get seated, and then kind of lost January, but now we're pretty much there. And what you have in your packet is a cover letter, a 1-pager, which is what we're going to use as basically a call for letters of support, and then just a simple flyer on some benefits. But I did email to the committee members an edited and fairly final draft application to the State Water Board, which in effect, lays out, it's about, it's brief, it's 4 pages, but it lays out the problem statement, if you will, which is housing is a crisis in California and it's a health and safety issue. And then goes into the relief requested and concludes with our view that the State Water Board has the authority to grant the relief. And so this is going to go into the state next week. We will almost simultaneously submit the so the cover letter and the application will go into the state. The call for letters of support and the flyer on potential benefits will go to some certain stakeholders, which are the jurisdictions, the 6 cities and the county, Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, Landwatch, and United Way. And so the timing will be such that we, in the distribution of those potential supporters, will be that we will request that they also send letters of support. And we'll just see what happens. But I think that, we're now at that point where we're ready to go. We're going to ask for 75 acre feet of relief from condition 2, but no relief from the effective diversion limit, which means any of these, should the state agree that any of these housing projects that get permitted simply won't be evaluated as violations of condition 2, but the water company will still be subject to maintaining their effective diversion limit, which, beginning January 1 of next year is their legal limit off the river. So on the one hand, this supports what we call, co-equal high priority items of the state or subjects of the state, but we are going to be very close to the effective diversion limit. So, we're releasing some water out into the public if the state agrees. At the same time, we're trying very hard not to overstep the legal limit off the Carmel River and the adjudicated Seaside Basin. So it's, it puts us in a precarious place, but that's not the issue. That's for us to manage here on the peninsula. What we really need is the opportunity to do this at the state level. So State Water Board's been expecting this for, basically 3 months. And this is just letting you know that we're ready to go. And I see that Director Riley is on as a attendee, but he did suggest that there might be some changes to the draft cover letter, which I can either communicate with him directly or he could raise in public comment.
Any other comments right now from the board? Questions, comments? You're muted, Alvin.
Thank you. Hey, Dave, how will we let the full board know what's going on? We're going to put this in the packet, or we're going to send it out where all the board members know what's going on? And
yeah, during the GM report on the March 15th meeting, so compliance with the CDO, I will address this.
Okay. And that way all those folks that was on that call to ask for that water for Monterey will be notified, and we're going to put this on the website so everybody know what's going on with it.
Right. It will go to every mayor, and I would assume every mayor will just, forward it to their city managers and their planning directors. And that'll happen, you know, middle of next week.
Okay, thank you.
Madam Chair, I do see that Mr. Riley is in attendance and he has his hand up, but I do have to caution you and Mr. Riley that he should not be speaking. This is not noticed as a meeting of the Water Management District. Board members may observe because this is a noticed meeting of the committee, but it's not noticed as a district board meeting. And as such, those observers who are members of the board cannot participate.
And did you see how fast he pulled his hand down? So
yes,
I'll communicate directly with him to find out.
I wish all my directors took instruction that well.
Well, I'm glad that you're keeping us in line. Thank you, General Counsel.
And I'm comfortable with George or any member of the public suggesting to our general manager any editing and so on, then bring it to the full board as edited. I'm fine with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Me too. I have one question here. What is the timing that we're expecting a response?
Right. Well, you know, so we're in this interesting limbo, and I see that both Catherine Stedman and Ian Crooks from the company are online. You know, they pulled their application from the Coastal Commission, resubmitted, got a notice of incomplete, and there's been some indication that maybe roughly around June, they might be back. If the commission acted and issued a permit, you know, they're still probably 30 months away from completion, best case, you know, based on the old timeline. So, you know, where we sit today is we're talking about an interim period of 3 years where the cities are desperately trying to just, you know, make a minor impact in their regional housing needs, allocation, you know, their RENA numbers, especially the city of Monterey, who's been very active in the last year at identifying sites and so forth. Yeah, so what we're trying to do is just, you know, release a little bit of water, and it's not really water per se, it's the scrutiny of condition 2 of the cease and desist order. And, you know, again, the idea is to try to live within our legal limits as a community. So the, you know, the Carmel River water right of 3,376 acre feet, we're not asking for additional water on top of that. We're saying, okay, we know what we're subject to, but this prohibition that is embedded in condition 2 that says no increase in use at an existing service connection, just, it doesn't work. It prohibits any housing starts. And, you know, it's in conflict with another state agency's desires, as well as the legislature, who's, you know, just gone overboard. In the last 2 years, the number of housing related bills that have been passed has been enormous. So, you know, it's like a 3-year fix, hopefully.
Thank you. Okay. We asking for comment on this issue from the public? Do we have anybody? Joel?
Director Anderson, I do not see anybody with their hands raised.
Okay, thank you very much. So this was just informational and.
Yep. Yeah, and just to be clear, you know, the board already authorized this whole progress. We had a, you know, a map of milestones and things. We got off a little bit. We didn't have a great meeting in November, but you know, I think now we're totally on track. So we're just going to go ahead and file this next week, send out correspondence to all of the local stakeholders and encourage them to, you know, send letters of support. So it's virtually done, but we'll report back to the board on the 15th that we've done it.
That's good. Okay, thank you.
Now the ask is 75 acre feet, if I read it correctly.
Yeah, yeah.
That's pretty minuscule. Then secondly, it struck me that the 3,000 acre feet of less consumption since 2009 was very impressive. And if I'm sitting on a board at the state, I'm thinking these folks save 3,000 acre feet of water and they want 75. Please give it to them, but we'll see.
And there is one individual I would put you in a room with from the state board to have that circular conversation, because I've tried it.
Well, and not only that, but 75 acre feet from my experience issuing water permits, it won't ever go out the door before we have a new water supply.
That's exactly right. You know, what we'll see from the cities for some of these housing projects will probably be 10 to 15 acre feet in 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
Well, from the city's viewpoint, we had done a housing overlay at Garden Road, which is light industrial. And there was a developer there who could have produced more affordable housing had he possessed the water. So I think there was maybe 30 or 40 extra units. I don't remember right off the top of my head.
Yeah,
and also,
you're spot on, Mayor. And that's the one that drew the attention of the attorney for the State Water Board.
Yes, exactly. And we don't want to do that. And then the other, we have 4 city-owned properties, and the council just asked our staff to work on 100% affordability on these 4 sites in the city. And by the time you add state-mandated bonuses and maximum density, it's not even close to having enough water to do even one of those 4 sites. So here's an opportunity that could be shovel-ready sooner, well, medium versus long-term, that some of that water certainly would have a home. So
yeah,
that's
and that was the focus of our efforts, really, was the work with the city of Monterey.
Yes.
That was the impetus for moving forward at this point. Unfortunately, those 4 city sites also have remediation work that needs to be done before they can be under construction. So that's going to take some time.
Yes. Well, you know more about it than I do, Stephanie. And thank you, by the way, on the behalf of the city for being an advocate for that. I appreciate it. And I know the Water Management District's been our ally on this. So thank you.
Yeah, and just for clarification, a few days ago, I did give Chris Cook of Cal-Am a heads up that we would be filing something of this nature. So it's not a complete surprise. And obviously we've talked about it since, well, frankly, almost 13 months ago. So it will happen, but we don't need Cal-Am's participation. We would appreciate their support, but nevertheless, it's going in as the district being the applicant. We will copy Cal-Am because the CDO basically is enforced against them. We were a co-applicant during the 2016 extension of the CDO. So it's kind of a, you know, a squishy situation as to who asks for what, but we do have the authority under Public Resource Code to apply for relief. And there's also authority within the CDO itself. So we're doing this as the district, not in conjunction with any other of the co-applicants, which in 2016 was the Mayor's Authority, City of Pacific Grove, Pebble Beach Company, and Cal-Am in addition to us. So just, you know, just so everybody's clear on who's doing what here. It's the district is the applicant.
Very good. It was an excellent letter, I thought, and report that you put together.
All right, and still no hands raised, Amy, so we're good.
Well, okay. So we're gonna move on to item 4.
Yeah, item 4, Joelle, if you put up the PowerPoint. There we go. So here are a few things we just wanted to let the board know. The water year ended September 30th, so we're already, you know, 5 months beyond. But we at the district had, some interesting questions, starting from, what are the trends? Has anything changed kind of year to year as a whole? And then what's up with COVID? And so I think you'll find some of this very interesting. So next slide, please, Joel. So this is water demand by use. It hasn't changed a whole lot. You'll see 69% is residential, single family, and multifamily. It's always been around 66, 65, 63, 68%. If you add the numbers up, they don't add up to 100%, they add up to 99%. And that's because the other and non-revenue didn't round up to the right number. But you can see basically that, we're primarily a residentially oriented water system. Next slide. And then by jurisdiction, you can see City of Monterey was 32% of all use, the unincorporated county at 30, Seaside at 14, which is interesting because, population-wise, Seaside and Monterey are much more compatible or comparable, rather. Pacific Grove, 13%, Carmel, 6%, and then the rest at, little bits, little dribs and drabs. So I just thought you'd find that interesting. Let's go to the next slide. So total water demand last 2 decades, and it's actually probably 21 years, but you can see that, we were in decline, and then right around 2015, which was during the drought, we started going kind of steady. But the drought ended 2017-18 winter, and we've had no bounce back. So we still kind of linger in that, just under 10,000 acre feet per year in total demand. And as you can imagine, high efficiency dishwashers and clothes washers and so forth, low flow toilets have now cycled through the system, and we're getting a lot of permanent water conservation, not just behavioral changes. But it looks like that, the 10,000 acre feet per year, just under that, 9,800 seems to be, a pretty persistent stopping point for total water demand. Next slide. So this is the maximum month, which is usually July or August. Occasionally it's been June. And you see almost the same trend, downward sloping into 2015, and then relatively steady thereafter. So what we've done as a community is we've shaved the peaks. No longer do we see a big bump in July or August. And, that includes Car Week in August. A lot of folks from Fresno and Texas coming here in July to get away. But we've managed to kind of just remain steady on the maximum month since about 2015. Next slide. So this is a breakdown of residential and non-residential use the last 2 years. The darker colors, dark blue is the most recent water year residential, dark orange is the most recent water year non-residential, and then the lighter blue is 1 year previous residential, and the lighter orange is 1 year previous non-residential. And what's interesting here is you can see, kind of the ebbs and flows of what happens during seasonality by month. But as you get to March and April, what you'll see is the orange bars, which are non-residential, they're relatively close in October, November, December. January, a year ago was a little higher, but February, this year was a little higher. March was the same. And then suddenly in April, May, June, July, August, September. The current year is significantly below the previous year. That's your COVID impact. And similarly, you can see on the blue bars, October, November, December, January, and February, and March a little bit, they're relatively close, but beginning April, May, and June, and significantly in July, and this is where I think I go back to my Texans and Fresno people comment, residential use far outstripped the prior year. And so I think that's the impact of COVID. Is commercial was way down once it began, residential was way up. And when people could get away from where they were in the middle of summer, they came here and rented homes in Carmel and PG and other places. And so residential use went way up in July, but generally speaking, ignoring July, post-COVID, commercial was down, residential was up, but not as much as we would have imagined. And I think that's kind of a compelling theme, is that even with the hotels closed for a period of time and restaurants not doing indoor dining, because we're in that environment where already 66 to 68% of our use is residential, a shutdown on the commercial side didn't really create much savings. And the fact that not all residents live and work on the peninsula seems to also not really evidence itself that all of the staff at the commercial businesses that were shut down, they didn't have a big impact. It was really, people were staying at home. And, but as a whole, the overall use was down a little over 100 acre feet from the prior year. So it's crystal clear that the commercial versus, or the non-residential versus residential, and keep in mind, the non-residential includes schools as well. So the kids weren't in schools, the junior college students weren't in FPC, and and so forth. So the trade-off was there was no overall increase in demand, but certainly residential went up and commercial went down. So just kind of interesting. And next slide shows the same data in a different form. And this is ignoring the actual amount of use, but it's the percentage of use. And so you can see the orange again is commercial or non-residential, the blue is residential. And so comparing 19 to 20, you can see that residential as a percentage of total use went up and non-residential went down pretty much mid-water year, which was the March start date of COVID-19. So it's in there and the data shows it. But I guess the takeaway is, even though we do more loads of laundry while we're working from home, the community as a whole didn't use any more water. We just changed the way we use it. So it's kind of an interesting study in demand, but there's nothing spectacular to take away from it other than it had an impact on how we lived, but not how much we use. And I think that's the last slide, right, Joel? Yeah.
Dave, do you see in these data, do you see the evidence of people not traveling? I mean, those numbers show people not traveling and people not coming into the peninsula.
Yeah, I actually thought that the July numbers showed people coming into the peninsula. And I can tell you as a resident of Carmel, It was overwhelmed. 4th of July weekend and a couple weeks after that, and the beaches. So I do think that there were probably increases in home rentals and people with second homes coming here to, you know, get away from the Bay Area or wherever they were. So there is some evidence of incoming population. I don't see any evidence of outgoing population. So like people who do live and work here just hunkered down at home, and that's reflected in the residential data. But yeah, I think the only takeaway is that we did get people coming here because of weather and then wanting to get away from wherever they're sheltered in place and so forth. But definitely the shift between commercial and residential is evident as well. So, you know, I guess it supports the whole concept that we have stayed home primarily, even though, you know, our own field staff, they've been out at work, they've been in the trucks, they've been out at the sites. And that's the same way for a lot of the businesses that, you know, have to go get things done. PG&E's always been out there and so forth. So, you know, we think like everything's shut down, retail shut down, restaurants shut down, hotels shut down. But that impact really didn't evidence itself in that visitors who come to the peninsula for that, you know, it's $2.8 billion a year. That loss of people really impacted water use. And, you know, maybe you can attribute the roughly 100 acre feet of reduction overall to those people. But that appears to be all they use when they come to visit us. So,
were they using the numbers that they were getting from analyzing the wastewater to see what the viral load was? Were they using that really as an estimate of incoming and outgoing visitors? Because that's you know, it's not use, but what's different in our community?
Yeah. So Stephanie apparently follows this,
tracks it carefully.
Very carefully. And didn't you tell me that you've seen that it definitely tracks the 3-day weekends?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Holidays.
It's going to be very interesting when we compile this information, because it's very clear when you have a large influx of visitors and the COVID count goes way up.
Yeah.
How many places are they doing it? I know Carmel Wastewater District is doing it. Who else doing it?
I don't think Monterey One Water is doing it, but
yeah, that's the only one we've looked at.
Yeah, it's various places around the country, not just
I'm just talking about here. Okay.
Yeah, no, I think it's only COD. But interestingly, yes, Stephanie's reported to me kind of on a regular basis. Like, you see the numbers? Clearly, this was like a cesspool of COVID, you know, 4th of July. And like,
I remember those numbers.
Yeah.
Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year's.
yeah, in the summer, yeah.
So that's it. That's just, and I will bring these same charts to the full board for the board meeting, just so the public can also see them. But yeah, it's just informational.
Wonderful. Okay, so that's any comments about this discussion item?
Dave just answered mine. I appreciate him bringing this to the board and the public where they can see where we're going on this.
Yep.
Yeah, I appreciate it too. Any additional comments by the board, or are there any hands raised, Joel?
Director Anderson, let's give it a few seconds here. And I do not see any hands raised.
Okay. Do we have any suggestion of items to be placed on the next agenda for this committee?
after our board meeting, that probably, I don't know if this committee or another committee is bringing up a letter to the state on the 1,000 acre feet after the mayor talks to his mayor group, and we're probably on the agenda for the 15th, but I think a letter probably be following that. So we'll see how the mayors do and what we come up with and talk about it on the 15th.
Thank you.
Yep.
Actually, I have a question. It's not related, but I'll ask it now. Related to what we talked about earlier. For all the items, the changes, the updates that we give rebates for, is there a place on the district website where what's current in all of these requirements, low flow toilets, or, you know, all the things related to water and construction? Is there a place where those are?
Well, yes, it's in our rules and regulations, and the water efficiency requirements are regulation 15. So rules 142 and 143. And I send out many emails every day to people directing them to those rules. As far as rebates go, probably the easiest place for people to look at rebate information is on the MontereyWaterInfo.org website, which is the joint website, conservation website that CalAm and the district operate.
Yeah, I have seen that. I was just curious where, if you wanted to find out, well, I replaced that 15 years ago, what's being required now when somebody is building a house?
142.
That's 142. Okay. Thank you, Stephanie.
It doesn't sound like it's very easy, though, does it?
It is. Actually, the rule is, yeah. Yeah.
You know, maybe we need a button on our website that just takes you straight to that rule or something.
There are actually. There's the water permits gives you information, conservation gives you information, and it will take you to various fact sheets and that kind of thing.
Got it.
I just think the rule is always the easiest to try to decipher exactly what's required.
Thank you.
Okay.
And I'm available.
All right.
No more questions today? No more comments? We can be adjourned.
And before everybody runs off, Mr. Mayor, I know that your city manager wants to do kind of a separate line of communication to the state water board on the housing needs. And we're fine with that. The district is fine with that. But if you get the chance to let them know, we will be filing all of this stuff, as I said earlier, midweek next week.
All right, I'll let them know as soon as we adjourn.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.
Between Alvin and Dave, I'm keeping real busy.
Well, good for you, Mayor. I am.
All right.
All right. Have a good one.